Hey guys, this is Time Travel Penguin, and today I'm going to be showing you how to do a proper BLJ uh, through a TAS. Um, I know I've made a tutorial over a year ago. Yeah, sometime like I think it was April last year when I first set up my channel. But I know a lot of people don't really understand the concept of zero input BLJ or the idea of pause BLJ, and if my information is correct, then I'm going to be able to explain it to you today. Um, so what the first thing you need to know is when you BLJ, you want to be able to do it as fast as possible. So if you're on flat ground, such as these stairs, just in the generic Super Mario 64 game, then what you're going to want to do is do a from a stop, which you can see my speed here is 0. You can do a BLJ in three frames. So what I'm just going to do is I'm going to go 1, 2, and if I do it here, you can see it won't work. You jump normally. So if I go 1, 2, 3, I just loaded from a save state, so you won't see that first frame. Then I do 1, 2. So 1 is the Z input frame, and then the second frame after that will be the A button. Now I'm going to hold back just because I can, and then that'll initiate your BLJ. So if I do it again, it'll be 1, 2, 3. So that's your third running frame. Then you're going to Z, then you're going to A. Now when you A, depending on your situation, you might want to BLJ at different spots, but for the sake of this, I'm just going to hold back straight away. Now I'm going to save state here. So what you want to do is make sure you don't have your A button pressed before you hit the ground, so you have time to figure out what's going on. So different BLJs have different spots. For example, if you're doing it in a glitchy wall, the BLJ will be different. Sometimes you'll be able to BLJ on every frame. You'll be able to press A on every second frame without pause buffer, or if you pause buffer, you can just do it on every possible frame you can. Whereas on alright, thank you for changing to Windows Basic. But on other situations such as here, you may have to withhold from BLJing for several frames, which I might have to do here. So if I increment by 1 frame, press A, you'll just jump backwards. But if I go 2 frames, press A, you'll go backwards. 1, 2, 3. You'll still go backwards. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then you don't jump. You actually do the BLJ properly. So that's what you got to be careful with every situation, where you want to do it as fast as possible, and that's where holding your direction when you do your jump comes in handy, because you want to do your BLJ as fast as possible, but at the same time you don't want to do it too long or have too much speed. So depending on the situation and the complexity of the BLJ, you've got to really work with what you have. So I know I don't make the most optimized videos, but that's one of the things I try to look out for as much as I can. It's, how early can I BLJ? But if I BLJ, sometimes you have to BLJ later on purpose, because you can exit the BLJ with the correct speed, or exit sooner. It's very tricky depending on the situation. Most of the times you have situations like this where it's uneven ground or stairs, or you will have some kind of slope where you can BLJ up again. So if you go 1, 2, 3, 4. BLJ, you can do a normal A press, increment by 1 and let go. I'm going to save state. Now if I do it again on the next frame possible, you backwards long jump, and you lose all your speed. So you can't BLJ on every frame, so you'll have to go 1, 2, and then do it, and it still doesn't work. So 1, 2, 3, and it does work. So 1, 2, 3, I'll press A, let go of A, and I will save state again. Now if I do it on the next frame, it works. So generally in this situation, you will be able to BLJ on every possible frame, and you can usually have your toggle on, which is done by just right clicking the button you want to press. So by the time I hit this wall here and I clip here, I have X speed is negative 834. So what I've done here is a very amateur BLJ, where I've held in this analog. Now, if you want to have more speed, now sometimes this is the optimal way to do it, depending again on the situation, especially if you need to lose speed because it's faster just to spam the A button, but also by spamming the A button and holding a direction, you lose speed on every button you're not pressing A. So sometimes you'll find that if you're in a situation where you're doing a low ceiling BLJ, which well, not necessarily low ceiling, but really any BLJ where you need to rotate or exit and get to a specific point. For example, I know in one TAS I'm doing at the moment, I am doing a BLJ in a certain spot and I need to clip through a gate. If I do a zero input BLJ, I end up hitting a wall, which obstructs my routing. But if I don't use zero input BLJ, then what I can do is I can not hit that wall. I have just low enough speed that I don't hit that wall, and I'm able to do what I need to do. That's what it was. So now if you remember, this was negative 834, so about negative 840. So now if we just do it with the zero input, so I'll go back to this frame. So it was 1, 2, 3, 4, if I remember. Yep, 1. So I'll make this 0. 1, 2, 3, 4. Then be careful, because sometimes if you change this back, it won't work. Now if I do this, it works. So I'll do that, and then I'll make it go back down to 0. Now if I do it, won't work. If I do 2, it works. So I'll go 1. Okay, so it's 1, and then every time I press A, I'll make this go back up. And whenever it's not A, I'll make it go back down to 0. So what this does is every frame you're not moving, every frame you're not holding A, you're technically moving. So it will want to lower your speed, because it's like when you slide backwards and you want to run forwards. Mario kind of runs on the spot for a while and then begins to move forward, because that negative speed needs to build back up to a positive speed. Whereas if you're not moving, what happens is Mario kind of glides, which means you're still going to lose speed over a period of time, but in this instance, you're not going to lose any speed. So now I'm just going to turn on my toggle, because now it's every frame. I'll just make sure it's 0. It doesn't have to be 0, as long as it's within, as long as it's less than negative 8. Your controller won't. See how this is 9? That means it'll count as moving. So as long as it's less than, see, this is 5, so it doesn't really matter, because it won't register as an input. But it is nice, especially when you're looking at other people's TASs, to have a clean input. Okay, so now if I reach this back door, well, sadly I clipped that. So here I have less speed. So let me just really quickly do that again. So what had happened was I actually jumped at the top of the stairs and I hit that wall, and for some reason it just got rid of my speed. It's not a big problem, but unfortunately I'm not recording this Mupen file, so I don't have the ability to go back and play it. So I think if I do it one more time, I'll just save state here. So now if I turn this off, yeah, I'll lose speed. So what I'll do is I'll just hold 0. So about here I'm at less speed. That's interesting. Oh, okay, so I have less speed because I can't do this one BLJ here. Well, that's unfortunate. What if I okay, so if I do it so if I go 1, 2. Okay, so if I made up for that BLJ by waiting for an input, so this is a good example. So if I BLJ as soon as I possibly can, which would be on this frame, I lose speed when I go through this door, which means my speed here you can see is negative 8. But if I wait, instead of doing 1 frame input, I do a 2 frame input. So I'll do 1, 2, and then I do my BLJ. I will be past this door, which means I have just saved a lot of time in some situations. Now, by this same point, I am no longer at, I think it was negative 8, what was it, 840, negative 840, negative 850. 1, 2. So here I'm at over negative 1000, or less than negative 1000. Now I've hit this wall, which is going to lose my speed anyway, but because I think Mario's gone out of bounds. But you can see just the difference in that speed. So the third kind of BLJ you can do with this, I believe, would be a PBLJ, or pause buffer BLJ, which 1, 2, 3. If I just do it real quick, and I'll explain it afterwards. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. I'm not going to worry about 0 input. 1. So 1. Okay. So here you can already see that Mario is at negative, more than negative 1000, and Mario's not going to move anymore because I am moving far too quickly for him to actually be at a point that isn't out of bounds. So Mario's not actually going to update his position, I believe, if my understanding of the game mechanics is correct. I don't know, I haven't watched Tan and Coke's videos in ages. But pretty much the way a pause buffer BLJ works is, if you look at a normal BLJ button, normal BLJ, essentially what you do is you press A, let go of A, press A, let go of A, and you repeat that, which means you press an A button every 2 frames. Now, a pause buffer BLJ is you're letting go of the A button in the pause menu. So that means that on every frame that isn't a pause menu, it's A, 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 A. So there's no break in between the A presses. And a pause buffer BLJ doesn't work for low ceiling BLJs, which is a mistake I make a lot because I forget that. And I'm constantly being told, you know, low ceiling BLJs, you can't do a PBLJ. So did I say, yeah, a low ceiling BLJ, you can't PBLJ. So you can only really do that on slopes and moving platforms, and they're good if you need to build up a lot of speed. When I say really quickly, it's pause buffer BLJs are slower in execution time in most situations, but in game time, if you think of it as for every frame that isn't in the pause menu, you build up speed quicker. So generally it is twice as slow, but more than twice as slow, because I think the pause menu is 4 frames or something. I don't remember the pause menu. I just did a shoddy example just there, but that's essentially it. A normal BLJ is faster. A 0 input BLJ is just as fast to execute as a normal BLJ, but you can get a lot faster speed, and there are times where you shouldn't 0 input BLJ, but 9 out of 10 times 0 input BLJ, you'll have a lot more speed. And then again, you know, you can pause buffer at the last minute. When you pause buffer, you don't want to do the pause buffer the entire time like I did here. So if I go back to, let's just do a really crappy BLJ up here. So about here, let's say I needed a lot of speed to clip through this star door, which we all know we don't need. About this speed I have now, which is negative 300-ish, you can clip through the door. But if you say you needed 1000 speed, you don't want to PBLJ right off the bat because you waste a lot of time. So a PBLJ is usually done at the end of a BLJ or during the BLJ in some tricky instances where BLJs just don't want to work. In which case you just do the BLJ, you do the pause buffering at the end of the BLJ. Okay, so what I'm doing now is I'm going to show you a technique that I didn't learn until only recently. Where's the BLJs? Well, here it is. Okay, so a technique I learnt. When you BLJ, and I'm just going to do a really bad one. Oh, this is going to be horrible. Is this going to work? Okay, this is kind of going to work, I think. Yeah, this will work. Okay, so let's say I get... This should do. This is the speed I want. Now let's say I want Mario to move past this column, or whatever. Naturally, I'm going to hold this direction. See that? Magic. And I don't know what happened there. Holy crap, that was awesome. Kaze, whatever your name is. Do that, explain that. Mario, he went through a warp zone, but he's still moving. It's the mystery Goomba! Anyway, so what you want to do in this situation where you BLJ and you want to change direction, and this is especially for low ceiling BLJs, is you do not want to hold a direction. And that was something I've only learnt the other day. It was NIST that showed me. And what you want to do is you want to have a 0 frame for, I think it's 5, for 5 frames, you will have 0 input. So I'm just going to go, so it's 1, 2, 3, oh, that's not it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you do your input, or maybe it was, hold on, so the way I do it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now if you look at my X speed, it should go back to 0, here we go. Now what I do is you go 2 frames earlier, and that's the last frame you have 0 input, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then you apply this change, and that way Mario will lose speed. But here you can see I hit a wall. This was the same example I was talking about before, where I said you will want to be careful as to when you 0 input BLJ. So in some situations it's best to hold a direction. Alright, thanks for watching, and I hope this explains your video, the idea of pause buffer BLJ, 0 input BLJ and BLJ, and the differences that they can have. If you have any comments, just feel free to ask, and I will help you out the best I can. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in my next video.